Alright you guys, so today I thought I would do a what's in my camera bag video. So I've got my camera bag here and I'm just going to go through kind of all of the things that I like to carry around with me when I'm doing landscape photography. Now I do want to preface this by saying that a lot of my photography equipment is actually very cheap. So I guess that's to say don't judge me because my stuff is really cheap. But on the other hand, if you're in school still, or you're in college, you don't have tons of money that you want to put into a hobby, definitely check this stuff out. I will have links in my description box down below where you can go to get this stuff if you want to. The reason for me that I mostly have very inexpensive gear is that most of the stuff I bought while I was in high school with money that I, kind of saved up from babysitting and lawn mowing and things like that. And, so if that kind of describes your situation, then check this stuff out. And if not, I am looking at getting some more expensive gear now. I'm really blessed to have a very stable full-time job since I've graduated from college. And so if you're interested in kind of more expensive professional equipment, then check out future videos. I'm sure I'll probably review that stuff as I purchase it. But let's go ahead and get into this video. Alright, so the first thing that I've got in my camera bag, of course, is my camera. This is the Nikon D3100. It's kind of an entry-level DSLR camera, and it was released back in 2010. Now, I'm actually looking to replace this camera, but that being said, this is not a bad camera. I think at the time that I purchased it, it cost me about $550, $600 to buy it with the two lenses that came with it. But now it's 11 years later, this camera's actually been discontinued by Nikon, and so you can pick these up on eBay with the same two lenses that came with them for just under a couple $100. So definitely, go over to eBay or someplace and check that out if you're looking for a camera that'll let you get into photography, get the fun of, changing out your lenses, buying and putting different lenses on the camera, things like that, getting into, that really fun photography without putting too much money into it. This is, worth checking out. Alright guys, so having said that, there are a few drawbacks to this camera. One is that it starts to get a little bit grain in the pictures when you go to a higher ISO, even just ISO like 800, which increases the sensitivity of your camera for low light pictures, but you really start to see a lot of grain in the background of photos with this camera. Now you can edit those out in your photo editor, you can remove that grain. But that's definitely something to be aware of, especially if you're taking pictures in low light. The second thing that you want to be aware of is that the crop sensor in this camera is a little bit older, so it's just not as good as newer ones. Obviously, a newer camera comes at a higher price point, but you gotta balance your cost versus your quality there. The third thing is this camera does not have very many focus points, whereas some mirrorless cameras, some different DSLRs have a lot more focus points, so you can really focus wherever you want. With this camera, you do have to kind of work with what you have, maybe lock your focus and move it around a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then the final thing is that this camera doesn't have some features that newer cameras have. So it doesn't have bracketing, for example, taking brighter and darker pictures, and it doesn't have like focus peaking, so you can't really see on the screen what's focused right now. So all that being said, I don't hate this camera. It's served me well, but I am at a place right now where I can afford to get a better camera, and so I'm probably going to do that. But if you're not looking to spend a lot of money on a camera, if you're looking for a budget camera that really lets you get into the fun of photography without really having to pay a high price for it, definitely you could check this out. Alright, so next up is I have 3 lenses. This one is an 18 to 55 millimeter lens that came with my camera. And honestly, I do not like this lens very much. I think that Nikon has improved this lens in some newer iterations, but when I take pictures with this lens, I find that they usually come out a little bit out of focus. They're just a bit blurry, and so that's not really what I want. I do carry this around just in case I can't get the picture with any of my other lenses, but I really try to avoid using it whenever I actually can. Second lens that I have is the 55 to 200 millimeter lens that came with the camera. Now this lens, on the other hand, I do actually really like. This isn't a terribly long telephoto lens, so if you're trying to take pictures of birds or something, it's maybe not quite good enough for that. You really have to be able to sneak up on the bird if you want to get a close-up picture of them. But if you're taking pictures of wildlife at the zoo or scenery that's farther away, or you just want to get a real close-up of a flower, this lens does work pretty well for that, and it does take really good quality pictures. So don't think that every lens that comes with the camera is necessarily bad. And again, I think Nikon may have improved that lens that I have after I bought mine, but I personally just don't actually like that one very much. And then the lens that I have on the camera right now, this is my favorite lens that I have. This is a 35 millimeter 1.8 aperture lens, and this lens is really good. I bought this lens separately. I think it was about $200-300, and it has really high quality glass in it. It takes really good pictures. Now this is a prime lens, which means that it doesn't have any zoom. You know, if you wanted to zoom in or out, you actually have to move your feet, which requires some more effort, but I think it also can help you to be forced to move around a little bit, see things from a different angle, and, you know, kind of get different pictures that way than you might if you just stood in one spot and zoomed in and out all the time. And again, that's a very high quality lens. I do really like that one. So moving on, I have a few kind of camera accessories in my bag. So the first thing that I'll show you guys is I have this very inexpensive macro lens adapter. I believe this is from Neewer. And what this does is it lets you put this macro portion of it on the end of your camera lens. And this is essentially a magnifying glass, and so it acts just like a magnifier on the end of your lens, and you can zoom in, you know, real close to something. That way it brings the focus point of the lens up a lot closer, and you can kind of achieve the same thing actually with the whole, you know, magnifying glass put over the end of your lens. But this way you just make sure you've got a high quality glass on there and it's attached to the lens, so you don't have to worry about dropping it. And then when you screw that onto the end of this portion, you actually have a wide angle lens, and so that lets you take, you know, wider pictures than what your lens is normally capable of. It does have a little bit kind of a fisheye effect around the outside, but it's not really a full fisheye lens either. I do find that the edges of this wide angle lens, particularly if you're using a really wide aperture at the same time, tend to be a bit blurred. You can compensate for that by using a tighter aperture, but if you're looking to get into macro photography, especially as, you know, kind of a side project, and you don't want to go out and spend, you know, maybe $1,000 on an actual dedicated macro lens, which no doubt will give you better pictures, but is massively expensive, you can pick up one of these pretty cheaply and then, you know, not break the bank on a fun project. Some other odds and ends in here. I have this remote for my camera. There's one of these available for basically every camera on the market, including phones. There's one for the iPhone or whatever as well. And I put this on top of my camera. There's a little cable here that plugs it in, and that lets me walk a fairly good distance away. The remote has an antenna on it actually, and I can snap a picture from there. So if I want to set up my camera someplace and not disturb a subject, I can walk away. Or if I want to take pictures of myself, if you really want to take some self-portraits with your DSLR or whatever, you can pick up one of these. Mine's from the brand Aputure. There's dozens of them out there, and these aren't very expensive at all either for kind of lower end ones, which do the job. You don't need to spend $200 on a fancy one of these if you don't want to, unless you're planning on going out and setting up a camera to photograph a wedding or something and being 100 feet away from it. But otherwise, for casually taking pictures of yourself or interacting with your subject while you're working the camera or something, this is a real good way to go. I also have kind of a set of filters in here. These are just some ND filters that darken up the lens. I've got a polarizer in here as well. It can be handy when you're out and the conditions aren't quite what you wanted. You want to change the reflections or the brightness of the picture a little bit. That's a pretty good way to go. And then, of course, just a lens cloth is in here as well. And then in sort of the front side of my bag, I do keep this memory card reader. I also keep my iPad in here a lot of times, and that'll let me take a look at the pictures while I'm out on a bigger screen, because it's pretty hard to see them on the camera screen. And then the other thing that I have is a pair of binoculars. If I see some birds or something, I haven't really used these a whole lot, but I like having them in there in case there's something farther away that I want to take a look at. That's an option. And really importantly is I have this first aid kit. I've got a few items stocked in there, and when I'm going out and doing photography by myself someplace, I really want to make sure that if I twist an ankle or I fall down and hurt myself, that I've got a way to bandage myself up before I have to hike back to my car. I don't want to be having to call somebody up to come and get me. So I would encourage you guys to carry some first aid as well. Alright, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're curious what kind of a camera bag I'm using, I'm actually about to film a full review of that right now. So definitely subscribe to my channel to make sure that you don't miss that coming up. And don't forget to like this video, leave a comment for me, and I will see you guys in the next one.